chirping connected to audio, so that's good. There we go. Just got the live stream announcement. Good to go. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call the meeting to order. Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of East Greenbush, meeting of February 8th, 2022. I'll start with the introduction of my board members as I see them on my screen. We have Scott Stravell. Hands up present. Bob Seward.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Matt Ostagai.
Good evening.
Tom Hickey. There we go. And I am the chairman, Jeff Pangburn. We have our zoning board attorney, Bill Hesney.
Evening.
Our zoning board secretary, Allison Lovely. And our court stenographer, Kateri Radigan tonight. We have all repeat attendees, so we won't go through the whole introduction we normally do. As per New York State law, we are hosting this as a virtual meeting. We hope will be our last virtual meeting, maybe forever. So we'll see what happens. But with that, we have a couple repeats. Looks like David left and has to come back in, Allison. Not sure how he got bumped. Just going to wait for him to connect to audio. There we go. So with that, we'll start on the top of the agenda. We are going to reconvene Zoning Board of Appeals number 2021-13, Benoit, 416-418 Hayes Road. This public hearing was tabled, waiting on a seeker determination, which we now have from the planning board. And with that, we have Drew Schulfert here tonight, I believe authorized to speak on behalf of the applicants. Drew, with the public hearing reopened, is there anything additional that you wish to add to the public record as part of the public hearing before we go to any final questions from members of the board? Alice, there we go.
No, nothing I think that needs to be added at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was expecting Mr. Benoit to be part of this meeting. I guess he's not.
Yeah, he has been sick. As we know, he's communicated with us, so we weren't sure if he was going to make it or not, but he did submit the authorization form allowing you to speak on his behalf tonight.
Okay. Maybe I should have touched base with him before the meeting, but anyway, I don't have anything new to add. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other questions from members of the board regarding this application? Seeing or hearing none, is there any questions from members of the public regarding this appeal tonight? Allison, you just want to check with David? I don't know if he can unmute. Okay. He just commented via chat that he's okay. So with that, with no other further questions or information to add to the public record, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have that motion?
I'll make it, Jeff.
Motion by Scott Stravell. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Jeff.
Thanks, Bob. Second by Bob Seward. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We'll entertain seeker and workshop after we close the next public hearing, which will move on to reopening public hearing 2021-15, DeGiulio of 44 Tanner's Lane. Mr. DeGiulio, available to speak on behalf of this application tonight? Mike, you might have a couple microphones open in the same room. That's what will cause that feedback. I see one open still.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. You might have a laptop and your phone open in the same room, which will cause that feedback.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing
Is that Mrs. DiGiulio?
that. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I think we might be able to make this work where it doesn't repeat with an echo for us.
Okay. So just checking to see if Brian Holder joined.
Yes, Brian is online. Brian, is there anything you'd like to add regarding this application? He's on mute. We have to unmute him, Allison.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Brian Holbritter, land surveyor for Mike and Mary Jane DiGiulio. Just to kind of bring the zoning board up to speed, we had a planning board meeting the night after we met with you 2 weeks ago. That went well. That was on January 26th. The planning board had a few questions which we were able to answer, and they have scheduled a public hearing for tomorrow night's meeting. And so I think we're doing well on that front.
Excellent. Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the board on this application? Okay, seeing or hearing none. Entertain any comments or questions from the public tonight? Go ahead, David.
The only thing I have is the same thing I said the board meeting last time, was that it's going to be additional taxes to town's coffers. They've done these people have done all their work up front. They crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. So as a homeowner in East Greenwich, I think it's a welcome thing.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, anybody else wish to speak tonight? I'm not sure who MT is.
I've asked them to unmute, but yeah, I'm not getting a chat or anything.
Okay. See if flicking like it unmutes and then it goes back to mute again, so. All right, without any further comments, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a
I'll make
motion.
that, Jeff.
I missed who had that one first.
Hickey did.
I'll give that to Tom Hickey. Thank you. You want to second that one, Scott?
Sure will.
Seconded by Scott Stravell. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, with that, seeker determination. By chance, both of these were coordinated seeker reviews. Zoning Board of Appeals 2021-13, Benoit of 416-418 Hayes Road. The planning board did issue a neg deck on that one. So we are set on seeker for that one. And with regards to the Zoning Board of Appeals number 2021-15 DiGiulio, 40 to 44 Tanner's Lane, again, planning board issued a neg deck on that one, a declaration of no significant effect. So with that, we can go into workshop and deliberations. Just so attendees know, there'll be no further input or comment from the public on these applications. You're welcome to stay online to listen in, or you're welcome to either watch the recording or reach out to the planning office tomorrow to see how things turned out. But with that, I'll turn it to the workshop on 2021-13 Benoit, 416-418 Hayes Road. So anybody wish to start on this one?
Jeff, I guess I'll start, right? Two Two buildings, 1939, 1940-ish. We've heard a lot about it. An easement's involved. There's not frontage on lot, no frontage on lot 2. But given the location, given it's just lot lines, and the proposed action, in my view, is small, I don't feel that there's anything that, at least in my view, should stop us from going forward with this one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, Jeff. Although there's multiple variances, this is really a paper transaction on this one. There's no change to the property. There's no change to the neighborhood. There's no change to entrances. So I don't see anything really material that will change on this except for granting multiple variances on already existing conditions that are pre-existing.
Thank you.
I would agree with Tom and Scott. I mean, one of the things we always worry about is setting precedences. And I certainly personally don't think it's our something we should be doing where we're doing multiple variances, but I look at this situation as being so unique, so odd, and I don't think we would be setting any kind of precedence, because the criteria in which another property owner would have to meet these criteria to meet this precedence is probably pretty far remote. And I really don't see how we could remedy this situation dating back pre-existing non-conforming from, like Scott mentioned, the late 30s, early 40s without granting variances on this one. I don't see any way to get around it. But that's my point of view.
Thank you.
And Jeff, just for the record, I wasn't involved with the earlier conversations, so I'm going to have to abstain through this because I don't have the information and the details. So I just want you to know that part of it. So
Thank you. I think for some reason, we had an issue with the YouTube stream on that first night. So yeah, that public record wasn't there. So thank you, Matt. So one of the points that was brought up both by members here and also the planning board too is the one thing we'll try to do is at least condition this so that no further subdivision happens going forward of these lots. The planning board in their secret determination did note that this property abuts the residential buffer zone. It's literally on the other side of the tracks as it goes. And that zone does allow 1.5 acre lots, which both of these lots would be bigger than that. I also think these two residences were built before the town ever had a zoning code. I believe there was a zoning code in the 50s or 60s, might have been the first one. I'm not sure if we had one before that. So obviously things happen before anybody that's involved in the town anymore can remember. Going forward, we're much more astute about allowing more than one primary building on a parcel because it turns into issues like this down the road. So I agree with the prior members' statements that, this is kind of a pre-existing issue. We're just cleaning up via paperwork. So it's interesting. With that, I'll do everybody a favor and I'll volunteer to push these motions forward.
Hey, Jeff, one item.
There we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible for us to put a condition that the easement be granted and be filed? If it has not been done already, which I don't think it has. I believe they said they were going to file an easement, but I don't believe they had at that time.
Yeah, I believe it's written on the map, but it's a good point that we should make sure that it winds up being filed so that it is official. We could do that.
Yeah, it would be a problem otherwise, potentially. It's a good call, Tom.
Yeah. And now, yeah. Remind me when we get to the lot 2 resolution not having frontage. That's where we should put that. And actually, it should show on the map too. Not just wording, just so we know it's there. So, any other points anybody wants to make on this before I jump in? All right, seeing or hearing none in the matter by John Benoit for 8 area variances. Resolution and final decision of Board of Appeals, appeal number 2021-13. Whereas an application has been filed by John Benoit of 295 Brunswick Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180. The applicant proposes a major 2-lot subdivision in order to separate a parcel with 2 single-family dwellings on it. The proposed major subdivision will not comply with the following provisions of the town's comprehensive zoning law. Sections 2.5.f.02 and 2.6.1e. And whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting 8 area variances at the property located at 416 to 418 Hayes Road, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 177-1-2. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published a notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in the record on December 3rd, 2021. And whereas notice of the public hearing was provided by certified mail to the owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Town Planning Board, and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021, and continued on February 8th, 2022 to consider this appeal. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenbush at its December 8, 2021 meeting provided a report of the requested area variances with a positive recommendation. And whereas at this hearing, the applicant, as well as any and all persons interested in this appeal, were heard, their statements recorded, and various written material, including exhibits, if any, were entered into the record. And whereas all statements, written material, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered. And whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and teacher, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed Lot 1 only having 1.8 acres where 5 acres is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, as there will be no change as the houses are existing since the 1930s or 40s. The condition is unique and is adjacent to the R-B zone with 1.5 acre minimum lot sizes. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing since the 1930s or 40s. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, it is a unique condition as it was built in the 1930s or 40s before present zoning. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed since the 1930s or 40s, and the adjacent R-B zone allows 1.5 acre lots. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for the proposal for a major 2-lot subdivision in order to separate a parcel with 2 single-family dwellings on it with proposed Lot 1 only having 1.8 acres where 5 acres is required be granted with one condition, the condition that the lot is not allowed to be further subdivided. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Jeff.
Second by Scott Stravell at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote
Oh,
was
hold
taken
on.
as.
Did you have the condition of filing the easement?
I'm going to put it on the no
Lot
frontage
2.
on lot 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yep, no
Sorry
problem.
about that,
Thank you. No problem. A vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai,
Stain,
abstain. Thank you. That's right. Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 to 1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. Thank you. We also have resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 1 only having 215.83 feet of frontage where 400 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the condition is existing for the house on lot 1, and there will be no change in lot width. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the house and lot frontage are existing. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, the house and lot frontage are existing. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed in this manner since the 1930s or 40s. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for the proposal for lot 1 only having 215.83 feet of frontage where 400 feet is required be granted with no conditions. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by
I'll second it, Jeff.
Bob Seward III at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing or seeing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains.
Correct.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell,
Yes, Jeff.
yes. Motion carries 4-0 to 1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. We also have resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 1 only having a 14.7-foot rear setback where 50 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the houses have existed since the 1930s or 40s. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing and this lot line splits the 2 lots and houses equally. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, it is the best balance between the existing houses. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed since the 1930s or 40s. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for the proposal for lot 1 to only have a 14.7-foot rear setback where 50 foot is required be granted with 1 condition. The condition I'd like to add is if a new house is being constructed on lot 1, the standard setbacks of the code shall be followed. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tom Hickey at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains. Jeff
Yes.
Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0 to 1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. We also have resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 1 only having a 46-foot side setback where 50 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the houses are existing since the 1930s or 40s. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing. 3, the requested variance is not substantial as it is only 4 feet out of the 50 feet required. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as the houses have existed since the 1930s or 40s. The alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for proposed lot 1 only having 46 foot side setback where 50 foot is required be granted with no conditions. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Scott Stravell. Thank you. At a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains. Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0-1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. We've also resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 2 not having frontage on a public street. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the houses have shared a driveway since the 1930s or 40s, and an easement will be granted across lot 1. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing and bordered by a railroad and a steep slope. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, this condition was created in the 1930s or 40s. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed in this scenario since the 1930s or 40s. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for the proposal for a major 2-lot subdivision with lot 2 not having frontage on a public street be granted with one condition, that the easement be shown on the survey map as well as filed with Rensselaer County Clerk. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by
I'll second it, Jeff.
Bob Seward III at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains. Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes, Jeff.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0-1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. We have also resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 2 only having 2.1 acres where 5 acres is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as there will be no change as a house is existing since the 1930s or 40. The condition is unique and is adjacent to the RB zone with 1.5 acre minimum lot size. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing since the 1930s or 40s. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, the condition is unique as the houses were built in the 1930s or 40s. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed since the 1930s or 40s and is adjacent to the RB zone, which allows 1.5 acre lots. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for proposed lot 2 only having 2.1 acres where 5 acres is required be granted with one condition. That condition is that no further subdivision of the lot be allowed. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by
I'll second.
Tom Hickey. Thank you. At a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains. Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0-1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. Feel like we should be done already, but we will further resolve that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 2 only having 163.08 feet of frontage or lot width where 400 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the neighborhood as the condition has existed for the house on lot 2 since the 1930s or 40s. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the house and lot frontage or lot width are both existing. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, the house and lot frontage are existing. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed since the 1930s or 40s. The alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for proposed lot 2 only having 163.08 feet of frontage where 400 feet is required be granted with no conditions. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by Scott
Scott Stravell.
Stravell. Thank you. At a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains, Jeff Pangburn, yes, Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0-2-1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. We have also resolved, last but not least, that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 2, only having 14.7 feet of side setback where 50 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the houses have existed since the 1930s or 40s. There is no other method available to the applicant as the houses are existing, and this lot line splits the 2 lots and houses equally. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, it is the best balance with existing houses. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as it has existed since the 1930s or 40s. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for the proposal for the proposed lot 2 only having 14.7 feet side setback where 50 feet is required be granted with one condition. If a new house is constructed on lot 2, it meet the requirements of the current zone for setbacks. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Jeff.
Second by Bob Seward III at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Matt Ostagai abstains, Jeff Pangburn, yes, Bob Seward III,
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0-1 with Matt Ostagai abstaining. So thank you very much. Believe it or not, that takes care of Benoit and sets a new town of East Greenbush record for 8 variances on 1 application. So with that, we can move on to our second one, which does not require so much relief.
You can drink a water, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Let me kick off. I will kick off a workshop deliberation on 2021-15 DeJulio at 44 Tanner's Lane. Anybody that wishes to speak besides me, feel free to start.
This one's a little bit more challenging to me just because I think fundamentally the size of the frontage on this on a cul-de-sac really gives me some pause. You see most of the cul-de-sacs that are created now end up having to spread the houses out pretty good in order to meet these types of restrictions. And I've driven down there a couple of times to just look at it, and it really feels like it's going to be jammed in there pretty tight for me from my perspective on it. I'm not sure if anybody else has that same perspective.
I I definitely agree with your concerns. I also have driven by the location a couple times to take a look at it. When the neighborhood was first built, probably 40 years ago, maybe now. I don't exactly remember when that neighborhood was built, but all the existing frontages were met by the developer in the plans. I talked about the precedence rule again. You know, where else does this start? We had a similar request in Sherwood Park, probably about 3 years ago. And we didn't allow that one either. I have a bit of a challenge with this one, like you, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in there, Scott, sorry, is
No, you're fine.
I agree. At first glance, I really struggled with this one because it's basically a 50% relief, cutting the minimum 75 and a half for the two of them. The pie shape of the lots did bring me around to considering this, that maybe it is just an anomaly that the frontage at the street is so narrow. But the lot width on average is much greater than the minimum required, especially once you step back away from the street. So I almost have a sentiment where as long as nothing is built anywhere on the lot where it's less than the required minimum width of 75 feet, that I could see it potentially working, because the two lot sizes are definitely greater than what's required there. And if the house is set back far enough from the street, kind of consistent with the neighboring homes, that it would have enough of a lot width to make it reasonable. I do not like the fact that one driveway goes across the other lots. I would want to see, especially as we just witnessed when we allow things to go through from the 30s and 40s before we had zoning codes. But in the future, we don't know who's going to live there or what. I don't like, the Hatfields and McCoys. I don't like one neighbor having a driveway across the other neighbor's frontage and snow blowing and plowing and grass issues. I would like to see the driveways at least rectified if this moves forward, that each lot contains its own driveway within its own minimum footage. This, to me, is a self-created hardship, this subdivision. So having that driveway cleaned up now as part of trying to move this forward, I think now would be the time to do that, where the original owners that are benefiting from the request and the subdivision clean up the issue. So I just wanted to throw those two things out there. Scott, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you pointed out, how far they sit back. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to go to the easement or something with that little triangle that was overlapping, Jeff. So you said it very well. I think that needs to be cleaned up, because down the road, that could be a real problem in my opinion. It's a tight little cul-de-sac down there with some pretty big lots. My headache would be with that little triangle. And I would like separate and distinct driveways personally for me.
Yeah, and I think when you do that, it almost increases part of my challenge with it is the lack of curb. When there's barely room to park a couple of cars in front of there when you have only a 35 and a 39-foot lot. Originally met it, and now we're taking something that was crafted specifically to fit in the original requirements, and now just cutting it in half. Again, I don't want to beat the drum again on this, but those are other factors that make me really struggle with this. That it's half of what it was when it was designed originally specifically to meet it. I think it opens up a little bit of Pandora's box on us.
I guess I could throw in here as well. And Tom, I could see that. And that is a challenge. Obviously, the uniqueness of it is on a curvature. It's on the cul-de-sac. And I don't expect people parking on the road in the first place there, to be quite honest with you. I don't think you see that quite often. And I probably lean more to the fact that if you look at it from, does it change the character of the neighborhood? I don't see that necessarily because of what Jeff had mentioned. They're sitting back, and just the uniqueness of the size of that pie shape, it gives them that kind of bandwidth. And so from the perspective looking in at it, I didn't see that being undesirable, quite honestly. You can't deny the fact that the frontage is going to be shorter, right? And so I think I do think you're spot on with that. And I'd have to agree with both Jeff and Scott about just the driveway. I think getting that cleaned up would be much more helpful going forward. So, but I don't know if I'm as concerned about that the frontage piece, just because of how the pie shaped lot sits in the cul-de-sac and how the homes will look according to that. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
You bring up 2 good points on this that do give me pause. One of which is, as we've seen, when you have friends and family over in a suburban neighborhood, you often need to have some street parking to supplement whatever's going on a parcel. And this definitely precludes at least 2 of these homes from really having anybody to park in front of them when you're down to 36 feet and change. And then, 20 feet to parallel park a car, and then your driveway width and pretty much eat up the entire frontage. So I don't know how successful you'd be trying to park in front of each lot. The other piece is the precedence we always worry about. And we did have a cul-de-sac many, many years ago, which was off of Waters Road, that came in for a similar variance request. They had a lot of land left at the end of the cul-de-sac. They did want to subdivide it. It was entertained to the point that a member of the public brought up the fact that the original subdivision map had a clause that those lots at the end of the cul-de-sac could not be subdivided any further. So it kind of made the zoning board's job pretty easy that was there. I don't believe we have that case here, but I am not certain if this was to move forward. Bill, I'm not sure if we could make that a condition or not. I would like to entertain, if it moves forward, a condition that there's the original subdivision did not preclude future subdivision of these lots at the end of the cul-de-sac, because they are a lot of excess land that for some reason Tanner's Lane wasn't extended further back to create some additional lots, which we don't know about, whether it was that prior 100-foot easement that cut through that's no longer being used, or why, we just don't know. But the planning board currently didn't reject this. They actually issued a positive recommendation to us. So do you
So
know?
you're talking about tabling it?
No, because I think we already closed the public hearing. I don't know that I want to reintroduce this a fact after the fact, no pun intended. I'd prefer, if we were to move it forward, to just make it a condition that if it was to be approved, that there was no prohibition against further subdivision of these lots, because I think that becomes a civil matter anyway, and not our jurisdiction if there was a requirement on the original subdivision plan. Is that correct?
Yep. So just make it a condition.
Okay.
Bob, you mentioned Sherwood having a precedent here. I don't recall that one. Is there anything in particular we should be aware of on that one?
It was up in Phillips Road in Sherwood
Okay.
Park. It wasn't a cul-de-sac, but what it was it was a lot that was a double lot that one owner, and he wanted to subdivide it, but he didn't have the road frontage. Is that correct, Jeff? If I'm remembering it correctly, he didn't have the road frontage.
He was smaller than the required lot size.
That's it. Didn't have the right lot size.
Okay.
He was undersized. It was an undersized lot. He owned 2 lots that were adjacent to each other. So he was trying to break off a small piece that had actually 3 street frontages.
Yeah.
Actually had 2 side streets and Phillips Road, and it was undersized. Yeah.
But,
I remember that now.
Yeah, he didn't have enough frontage on one street, but all the frontages combined, which is kind of we didn't really get a judgment on that to give them enough frontage.
Okay, I remember that one now. Thanks.
You know, it is going to become, should parking and property values on those 3 lots decrease in the future, the good news is the owner that's causing the hardship will be the one that will absorb that financial hardship. You know, a lot of times we see these where you're issuing a variance potentially to a builder who's just there to flip the property and the other neighbors suffer. This is somebody who's going to live there. So if the property values do decrease, they would absorb that decrease, not a third party. So that does help. The fact that it's at the end of the cul-de-sac does provide some additional parking opportunities, and minimize the effect of one additional parcel. I don't think one additional lot in that neighborhood hurts anything. It's such a large lot anyway. I think it's 3 to 4 times the minimum size. So, or excuse me, roughly 3 times the minimum size. I don't know, any further discussion? I don't know.
We had a
which
couple
one
conditions, right?
I
when we get there.
believe if I was to vote yes, it would include a handful of conditions. Yes.
Agreed. Okay, we'll deal with that when we get there. Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. All right. Anybody wish to make a motion?
You're on a roll tonight, buddy.
Let's see what we got here. I will attempt a motion with some conditions. You all vote your conscience and we'll see where it lies and we can make a different one afterwards if necessary. So Town of East Greenbush Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter by Michael and Mary Jane DiGiulio for 2 area variances. Resolution and final decision of Board of Appeals, appeal number 2021-15. Whereas an application has been filed by Michael and Mary Jane DiGiulio of 44 Tanners Lane, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes a minor 2-lot subdivision, and each lot does not have the required frontage in the R2 zoning district. Proposed lot 1 would have 35.71 feet of frontage where 75 feet is required. Proposed lot 2 would have 39.35 feet of frontage where 75 feet is required. The proposed subdivision will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law. Section 2.6.6E of the town's comprehensive zoning law. And whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting 2 area variances at the property located at 40 and 44 Tanners Lane, East Greenbush, New York, tax map numbers 144.3-1-14 and 144.3-1-1.115. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published a notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in the record on December 17, 2021, and whereas notice of public hearing was provided by certified mail to the owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Town Planning Board and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, December 28th, 2021, and continued on February 8, 2022 to consider this appeal. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenbush at its December 22, 2021 meeting provided a report of the requested 2 area variances with a positive recommendation. And whereas at this hearing, the applicant, as well as any and all persons interested in this appeal, were heard, their statements recorded, and various written material, including exhibits, if any, were entered into the record. And whereas all statements, written material, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered, and whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and the teaker, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 1, only having 35.71 feet of frontage where 75 feet is required. 1, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, as the remaining lot size will be substantially larger than the minimum lot size required in that zone. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant, as the lots are located on the end of a cul-de-sac, and the only way to create the extra lot is this frontage variance. 3, the requested variance is substantial. However, the remaining lot size is substantially larger than the minimum required, period. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood, as the remaining lot sizes will be much larger than the minimums required. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for an area variance for the proposed minor 2-lot subdivision with lot 1 proposing a 35.71 foot front setback be granted with 2 conditions. The first condition, that the lot contain 1 and only 1 driveway to the primary building on that lot. And 2, that future subdivision of the original cul-de-sac lot was not precluded on or as part of the original subdivision approval as indicated on the final site plans. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Jeff.
Second by Scott Stravell at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
No.
Matt Ostagai,
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
No.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. We also have resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact with regards to proposed lot 2, only having 39.35 feet of frontage where 75 feet is required. We will use the same criteria, the first 5. Kateri, is that okay to just repeat those? Okay, thank you. I could see her shaking her head yes. Therefore resolved that the application for an area variance for the proposed minor 2-lot subdivision with lot 2 proposing a 39.35 foot front setback be granted with the same 2 conditions. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Matt Ostagai at a meeting duly held on February 8th, 2022. Any discussion on the second motion? Seeing or hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. Tom Hickey,
No.
Matt Ostagai,
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III,
No.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you very much. All right, with that, that concludes the agenda for tonight. Just slide back up to the agenda. With that, we have our next meeting on February 22nd, 2022. I believe that is CMT storage interpretation, correct, Allison? Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. Approval of minutes, January 25th, 2021. Is that everybody?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes, January 25th, 2021?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tom Hickey. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Scott Stravell, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries 5-0. Brian, thank you. Mr. DiGiulio, thank you. You guys are welcome. Give us a couple days to put the resolutions together, but you guys, well, you have planning board tomorrow night, so you can pick it up there. Thank you. David, thank you for attending too. Appreciate it. And with that, no further business. I'll entertain a motion to end the meeting tonight.
Make that motion.
Motion by Bob Seward. I see a second by Scott Stravell.
Yes,
All
sir.
those in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion carries 5-0. Allison, thank you for handling your first Zoom meeting with almost no glitches. Tom, thanks for being a trooper and being technically literate to find a backdoor into our meeting. Thank you. And
No worries.
members of the public, thank you for participating, and hopefully we're back in person on February 22nd. We'll see what happens. Watch for the governor to speak tomorrow, I believe. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, have a
Thanks,
great night,
guys.
everyone.
Appreciate
night,
it. Have a good
everyone.
night.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Good night.
Safe travels,
Appreciate
Matt.
it.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep, take care. Bye.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.